For most of human history, life moved slowly. Then, machines changed how people worked and how power worked. Industry didn't just build factories, it built empires, nations, and the modern world. This is the moment when everything began to accelerate.
Imagine standing in Britain around 1800. Coal dust hangs in the air. Steam hisses from strange new machines. The ground vibrates with the turning of giant iron wheels. A transformation is beginning, one that will reshape not only Europe, but the entire world.
Mr. Higgins, the growth of this factory is astonishing. How did Britain leap from workshops to industrialized cities?
It comes down to a few key ingredients, miss. Think of it like a recipe. First, we needed resources.
Like coal and iron?
Precisely. The coal to fuel the engines, the iron to build them. Britain had both in abundance, right under our feet. But across Europe, France, Belgium, later Germany, wherever coal and iron existed, factories followed. And every nation trying to catch up must follow this engine. But resources alone are just rock and dirt. You need capital.
Money to invest from trade and banking?
Exactly. Wealth from centuries of global trade, silver from the Americas, textiles from India, poured into banks right here. Capital turned inventions into industries. Mills, steelworks, railroads, shipping companies.
And the third ingredient?
Entrepreneurship, the risk taker, the fellow who perfects the steam engine, or the businessman, like myself, who gathers the capital, buys the resources, and figures out how to profit from it all. Without that spirit, Miss Alexa, this entire machine grinds to a halt.
So abundant resources, flowing capital, and daring entrepreneurship built this industrial economy.
They did. But there's a new problem, miss. Our factories now have an insatiable global appetite. We need more than just coal and iron. Now, if you'll excuse me, I must secure a new shipment of cotton from our suppliers in India and the American South. Soon, even Africa will become part of this supply chain.
Europe's new factories needed something they did not have enough of: raw materials, markets, labor, land. Industrialization demanded expansion. Factories hungered for more than steam and steel. They hungered for resources from across the world. Cotton for the ever-growing textile mills, rubber for belts, gaskets, and the machinery that powered production. Copper and tin for the electrical wiring of a modern age. Palm oil to keep the engines turning, smooth and fast. And tea, coffee, and spices to satisfy Europe's exploding consumer markets.
The appetite of industry was endless, and it pushed empires farther and farther across the globe. To industrial nations, Britain, France, Germany, Belgium, and Italy, Africa and Asia appeared to Europe like vast warehouses waiting to be claimed.
Railroads, telegraphs, and steamships made conquest easier than ever. Imperialism became a way to feed the industrial machine and a way to display national power.
Berlin, 1884, a grand chandeliered hall. Flags of Europe hang above a massive map of Africa laid out across an oak table. Delegates murmur as Otto von Bismarck steps forward, calm, deliberate, hosting the great diplomatic performance of the age. Beside the Congo Basin stands King Leopold II, tall, bearded, calculating. Leopold makes his claim.
The Congo Basin is a vast, unclaimed wilderness, a region Belgium is ready to develop, civilize, and open to international commerce.
A few delegates shift in their chairs. British Representative Sir Edward Malley lifts an eyebrow.
Commerce, or the rubber your industries cannot survive without.
Leopold's thin smile widens.
Rubber is valuable, yes, but the local populations lack structure. They will require firm guidance and a disciplined hand to make the land productive.
Everyone in the room understands what firm guidance means. The map is drawn. Bismarck picks up a straight edge and draws a long, hard line across Central Africa.
It is settled. This region shall be recognized as the International Association of the Congo, administered by His Majesty King Leopold II.
A short, awkward silence follows.
One day I shall rename this territory the Congo Free State.
Then, two Belgian aides quietly chuckle at the word free. One looks down, one bites his lip to hide a grin. Leopold stares straight ahead, pretending not to notice. Millet hears the chuckle. He fixes the Belgians with a cold look.
Free. The Congo Free State. Indeed, that will be quite the headline.
The aides instantly stop smiling.
Nothing about this arrangement is free, or least of all the people who live there.
Leopold's jaw tightens, but he says nothing.
France moves from the west. Portugal clings to the coasts. Germany advances in the east. We are tripping over one another for territory.
Which is precisely why we gather here, to avoid European war through clarity and order.
The principle that changes everything. Bismarck addresses the room with statesmanlike authority.
Effective occupation. No claim shall be recognized unless the occupying power controls the territory with soldiers, treaties, and administration.
No African voices here, this is true, but neither will Africa remain untouched. The question is whether this continent is ruled by chaos or connected by rail from Cape to Cairo.
Leopold rolls up the designated Congo section with a crisp, satisfied snap.
History will thank us for bringing order, even if it cannot yet appreciate the sacrifices required.
A faint military drumbeat echoes from somewhere deep in the building, a dark omen of what the Congo will endure.
Gentlemen, Africa awaits division.
The delegates sit, pens scratch, borders shift, a continent is carved before afternoon tea. But as Europe stretched outward, one major nation remained absent from the race. The scramble for Africa unfolded in the decades after the American Civil War, while the United States turned inward, rebuilding a fractured nation through reconstruction, westward expansion, and industrial growth. So when European powers prepared to divide Africa, the United States did not arrive as a competitor, only as an observer. It had no African colonies, no territorial ambitions there, no army positioned for overseas conquest. But the United States did insist on one thing: Liberia must remain untouched. Founded in the early 1800s by formerly enslaved people returning from the United States, Liberia was more than a country. It was symbolic. A republic built by people reclaiming their freedom. A parallel story to America's own struggle after the Civil War. So when the European empires drew lines across Africa, dividing kingdoms and redrawing borders, Liberia and Ethiopia stood apart. Among the very few African nations to remain independent, a small exception in a massive imperial system, but one with lasting significance. The Berlin Conference did not industrialize Africa, it organized access. Access to resources, access to labor, access to markets. The borders drawn in Berlin followed what industry demanded: minerals, trade routes, raw materials. For Europe, the results were clear. Resources fed factories. Capital expanded railroads, machines, and shipping. Entrepreneurship linked production to global markets. Industrial economies did not stop at national borders. They expanded outward in search of more fuel. Together, resources, capital, and entrepreneurship powered Europe's industrial rise and pushed that power across the world. For most of human history, life moved slowly. Work was done by hand, and families lived where they were born. The rhythm of life followed the sun, the seasons, and tradition. Then, in the late 1700s, the world began to accelerate. In Britain, machines powered by steam replaced human muscle. Iron frames and spinning wheels filled newly built factories. Cloth that once took weeks to make could now be produced in hours. Coal burned day and night, feeding engines that never tired. People followed the machines. Rural villages emptied as families crowded into growing cities. Streets filled with smoke. Tenements rose quickly and cheaply. Workdays stretched from dawn to darkness. Men, women, and children labored beside clattering machines, trading fresh air for wages. Wealth accumulated, but unevenly. Factory owners prospered. Merchants expanded their reach. Meanwhile, workers endured dangerous conditions, low pay and little protection. Cities grew faster than sanitation systems could keep up, and rivers darkened with industrial waste. At some point, a question becomes unavoidable.
If industry was advancing so quickly, Did life actually get better for the people inside those factories?
That's the right question to ask.
Better? That depends on who you ask, lad.
From the perspective of the working class, dismissed by elites as the great unwashed, the first industrial revolution was not comfort or opportunity. It was survival.
We were pushed into cities that weren't ready for us. No sewers, no clean water, just soot and cramped tenements. 14-hour days in textile mills just to afford a crust of bread.
Yet the transformation could not be stopped. Steam power spread beyond textiles into transportation. Railroads stitched regions together. Goods moved faster than ever before, and markets expanded. The first industrial revolution permanently altered how people worked, lived, and traveled, even as it strained those caught inside it. Just as societies began to adjust, a second wave of change arrived. By the late 1800s, industry was no longer driven by steam alone. Electricity lit streets and factories, oil-powered engines, steel replaced iron, stronger, lighter, and more flexible than anything before. Production became faster, larger, and more precise. Inventions reshaped daily life. Light bulbs pushed back the darkness. Telephones collapsed distance. Assembly lines turned manufacturing into a continuous flow, producing goods for millions rather than thousands. Factories grew larger, machines grew more complex. Operating steel lathes, electrical grids, and chemical plants required skill, and skill brought leverage. Workers noticed.
One major effect of the Second Industrial Revolution was the rise of organized labor.
We formed unions. We demanded safer conditions, shorter hours, the 8-hour workday. In the first, we were replaceable parts of a machine. In the second, we became something else.
Consumers. Cities slowly began to change. Advances in chemistry and biology led to public health reforms. Underground sewers, clean water systems, vaccinations, education expanded. Middle-class neighborhoods grew. Inequality remained, but standards of living improved for many. The Second Industrial Revolution did not erase the damage of the first, but it proved something critical. Progress could be shaped, not just endured. By the early 1900s, the world was unrecognizable compared to a century earlier. The effects of the First and Second Industrial Revolutions reshaped economies, societies, governments, and the global balance of power. And now, the world is changing again. Artificial intelligence, automation, and robotics are beginning to replace routine thinking, just as steam replaced muscle and electricity multiplied productivity. This moment feels new, but the pattern is familiar.
Just remember, lad, every rise in standard of living was paid for in sweat, and won by voices that refused to stay quiet.
So, what happens to people this time?
History gives us a clear answer. Work does not disappear, it changes. Old jobs vanish, new ones emerge. Productivity rises faster than protections. Inequality widens before reforms catch up, unless societies act sooner. That is the lesson the industrial revolutions leave us. So the question is no longer, can we trust what we see? The question is, how do we know? This is why history matters, not to memorize facts, but to verify them. Artificial intelligence can expand access to education, translate languages instantly, reveal patterns humans might miss, and even reduce dangerous labor, and give people more time for creativity, care, and learning. The danger is not artificial intelligence itself, but unprepared societies using it. If AI is shaping the next great revolution, then education must adapt with that technology, and human judgment must remain central. So when you see that catchy headline or a meme designed to trigger an emotional response, pause and remember to apply OPCVL to whatever message being presented. Who created it? What was their purpose? What is the full context? What is the value of this information, and what are its limitations, its bias, or what's being left out? That pause is the difference between thinking critically and letting the screen decide what you believe. European imperialism was not accepted quietly. Across Asia, foreign rule brought railroads, trade, and new technologies, but it also brought humiliation, cultural erosion, and violence. When pressure reached a breaking point, resistance followed. Two of the most important responses to imperialism were the Indian Rebellion of 1857 and the Boxer Rebellion in China. Both were explosive, both failed militarily, and both permanently reshaped imperial rule. By the mid-1800s, Britain controlled much of India, not directly through the crown at first, but through the British East India Company, a private corporation with its own army. Indian soldiers known as Sepoys made up most of that army. Resentment had not appeared overnight. It accumulated slowly as Britain ruled with a confidence that often bordered on arrogance. Indigenous laws, religious practices, and social traditions were dismissed as backward or inconvenient, rather than understood as the foundations of Indian society. British officials interfered with sacred customs, removed Indian rulers, and annexed territories with little regard for local authority or legitimacy. At the same time, traditional industries were deliberately undermined, flooded with British manufactured goods that displaced artisans and weakened local economies. By the 1850s, British rule was no longer experienced as distant administration. It was felt as cultural intrusion, economic disruption, and political dispossession, conditions that made rebellion not only possible but inevitable. One policy in particular intensified resentment: the doctrine of lapse. Under this doctrine, if an Indian ruler died without a biological male heir, Britain seized the kingdom, regardless of long-standing Indian adoption traditions. To Indian elites, this was theft disguised as law, but the final spark came from something symbolic and deeply offensive. In 1857, Sepoys were issued new rifle cartridges rumored to be greased with cow and pig fat, offensive to both Hindus and Muslims. Soldiers were required to bite the cartridges open. To the British, this was a logistical detail. To Indian soldiers, it was cultural desecration.
They told us it was progress. They told us the company brought order. But how can there be order when you ask a man to bite into his own soul? Cow fat, pig fat, an insult to every Hindu and Muslim who wore your uniform.
It was a technical necessity for the Enfield rifle pandy. From London, we did not see a soul. We saw a breach of contract. You took our pay. You wore our red coat. And then you turned our guns on us.
The revolt spread with stunning speed. Sepoys turned their weapons against their officers, and the rebellion quickly moved beyond the barracks. Civilians joined the uprising, towns erupted in violence, and British officials and their families became direct targets. For a brief moment, the foundations of British rule in India appeared to crack. What had begun as a military mutiny threatened to become the collapse of an empire. Britain responded with overwhelming force, determined to restore control at any cost. Reprisals were swift and brutal. Villages suspected of aiding rebels were collectively punished, and executions were carried out publicly, meant not only to kill, but to warn. Order was reimposed, but at a price that deepened resentment and ensured the rebellion would not be forgotten. The rebellion was ultimately crushed, but its consequences were profound. The British East India Company was dissolved, ending corporate rule in India and placing the subcontinent under the direct authority of the British Crown. Administration became more centralized, surveillance more constant, and military presence more permanent. British rule grew more cautious in its approach to Indian customs, but far more authoritarian in its control. Order was reimposed, but at a price that deepened resentment and ensured the rebellion would not be forgotten. The rebellion failed on the battlefield, but it forced Britain to reshape India, and in doing so, it reshaped the future.
You think you won because you reorganized the government, but you centralized our resentment. You gave us the telegraph, and eventually we used it to coordinate your departure. You gave us your language, and we used it to demand our freedom.
China faced imperialism differently. China still remembered the Opium Wars, conflicts in which foreign powers had forced open Chinese ports, flooded the country with addictive drugs, and dictated unequal treaties at gunpoint. Rather than full colonization, China was carved into spheres of influence, regions controlled economically and politically by foreign powers. Missionaries arrived, foreign merchants dominated trade, Western customs spread. To many Chinese citizens, this felt like invasion without conquest. What followed wasn't diplomacy, it was the carving up of the Mandarin pie, every empire demanding a slice. The result was not just economic damage, but deep humiliation and loss of sovereignty. Who were the Boxers? The Boxers were members of a secret society known as the Society of Righteous and Harmonious Fists. To them, foreign influence represented far more than economic pressure. It was a cultural and spiritual threat. They believed that outsiders were corrupting China, weakening long-held traditions, and undermining the moral order that had defined Chinese society for generations. Many Boxers also believed that through martial arts training, ritual, and spiritual discipline, they could protect themselves from foreign weapons. These beliefs gave the movement confidence and unity, but also left it dangerously unprepared for the modern military force it would soon confront. Their slogan was clear: support the Qing, destroy the foreign.
You came with Bibles in one hand and opium in the other. You tore down our shrines to build your churches. You told us our spirits had no power. The world was shrinking, Lin Hai. China was a closed door, and we turned the handle. We brought the telegraph, the steamship, global trade. Iron bridges spanning rivers, steam locomotives cutting through countryside, telegraph wires stretching across landscapes, progress, clean, powerful, and I shall say, imposing.
The violence spread quickly. Boxers targeted foreign diplomats, Christian missionaries, and Chinese converts, groups they viewed as symbols of foreign intrusion and betrayal. At first, the Qing government hesitated, uncertain whether the movement represented dangerous chaos or a useful expression of popular resistance. Eventually, it offered limited support. That decision proved disastrous. In response, an 8-nation alliance, including Britain, France, Germany, Russia, Japan, and the United States, sent troops into China, turning a domestic uprising into an international invasion. The Boxer Rebellion ultimately collapsed under the pressure of foreign invasion. In its aftermath, China was forced to accept harsh terms that deepened its humiliation. Massive reparations were imposed, foreign troops were granted permanent stationing on Chinese soil, and imperial powers expanded their control even further into China's political and economic life. What began as resistance ended by tightening the grip of empire. The Boxers' resistance was fueled by nationalism and cultural defense, but lack of modern weapons and unity doomed the movement. Instead of expelling imperial powers, the rebellion deepened China's weakness and exposed the Qing dynasty's fragility.
You burned our summer palace. You fined us 450 million taels of silver for the privilege of you killing our brothers. We wanted predictability. After the Boxers, China was finally opened to the world. No longer defiant, no longer uncertain, but regulated, monitored, and accessible on terms the global order could rely on. A peace that felt like a cage.
Despite occurring in different regions and decades, both rebellions shared important characteristics. Each emerged as a response to cultural intrusion and political domination, and both drew strength from popular participation rather than elite leadership alone. In each case, resistance was met with overwhelming force and brutal suppression by imperial powers determined to maintain control. Their outcomes, however, diverged in meaning. In India, rebellion prompted the consolidation of imperial authority, leading to more centralized and authoritarian rule under the British crown. In China, the uprising exposed the deep weakness of the Qing dynasty and accelerated its decline, pushing the empire closer to collapse. Neither rebellion ended imperialism, but both revealed a hard truth about empire. Resistance would be met with overwhelming force. When revolts failed, they did not bring compromise. They brought tighter control, heavier surveillance, and diminished sovereignty. Imperial powers learned to rule more cautiously, but also more aggressively, ensuring that future challenges would be crushed before they could threaten the system itself. Imperialism did not succeed because it was welcomed. It survived because it had superior weapons, global alliances, and economic leverage. Resistance often fails in the short term, but reshapes history in the long run. These rebellions foreshadowed the nationalist movements of the 20th century that would finally dismantle empires.
Alas, history is written in the ledgers of the victors. No, history is written in the blood of those who refuse to be forgotten.
History is not only something we study, it is something we are living through. In a world flooded with headlines, memes, and viral claims, the past offers a vital tool. Apply OPCVL to everything you see. Ask who created it, why it exists, and whose perspective it represents. As AI-generated images, voices, and videos make it increasingly difficult to distinguish what is real from what is fabricated, this skill becomes essential. The future will favor those who slow down, question what they are shown, and demand evidence before belief. History does not teach us what to think. It teaches us how to search for the truth. Thanks for watching.
For centuries, Italy was not a country. It was a memory, a shared language, a shared culture, a shared past stretching back to the Roman Empire. But in the early 1800s, Italy existed only as a fragmented peninsula divided among foreign rulers, rival kings, and the Catholic Church. And yet, by 1870, Italy stood united as a single nation. This is the story of how nationalism, one of the most powerful forces of the 19th century, transformed an idea into a country. After the defeat of Napoleon, European leaders gathered at the Congress of Vienna in 1815. Their goal was not freedom, their goal was stability. Italy was carved apart with little concern for Italians themselves. Austria controlled the north. The Pope ruled the center. The Kingdom of the Two Sicilies dominated the south. Only Piedmont Sardinia remained under Italian leadership. Foreign control, especially Austrian rule, bred resentment.
It looks like a jigsaw puzzle someone stepped on. Austrians in the north, the Pope in the middle. How did this ever become one country?
Because of a soul. In my time, Italy was only a geographic expression. We were a people without a name. Without a country, you have no voice, no rights.
Italian nationalists believed something radical for the time, that Italians were not just residents of regions, they were one people. That belief had a name, nationalism. Italian nationalism took shape in the Risorgimento, the rebirth. Writers, artists, and revolutionaries argued that Italy shared a common language, culture, history, and destiny.
I didn't command armies. I wrote, I founded young Italy. I told the youth that Italy should be a nation and a republic.
So you just talked people into it?
Ideas are not small things. They are the spark before the fire.
But belief alone could not unify Italy. Unification would require strategy, war, and power. That power came from Piedmont Sardinia, the strongest Italian state. Its prime minister was Camillo di Cavour.
Ideas are lovely, Mazzini, but cannons and treaties move borders.
Cavour was no revolutionary dreamer. He was a realist. He modernized the economy, built railroads, strengthened the army, and made alliances.
I whispered in the ear of the French emperor. I used nationalism as a tool.
You traded Italian land for French help?
And gained Lombardy. That is how nations are built.
In 1859, Austria was defeated. Northern Italian states voted to join Piedmont Sardinia. Italian unification had begun. While Cavour worked through diplomacy, another nationalist chose action, Giuseppe Garibaldi. In 1860, Garibaldi led a volunteer army, the Red Shirts, into southern Italy.
Enough talk. While you negotiated, I fought. I offer neither pay, nor quarters, nor provisions. I offer hunger, thirst, forced marches, battle, and death. Let him who loves his country in his heart, and not with his lips only, follow me.
They landed in Sicily, overthrew local rulers, and gained massive popular support.
They rationed shots, relied on speed and surprise, and advanced anyway.
We did not win because we had more bullets. We won because we moved forward when others would have stopped.
You were a Republican. Why stop? You could have taken power.
Because I loved Italy more than my pride. I would not trade unity for civil war.
Garibaldi handed his victories to the King of Piedmont Sardinia. Revolution bowed to unity. In 1861, most of Italy was united as the Kingdom of Italy. Its ruler was Victor Emmanuel II. But Italy was still incomplete. Venetia remained Austrian. Rome remained under papal control, protected by France. Nationalists believed Italy could not be whole without Rome.
So the handshake fixed everything?
Hardly.
In 1866, Italy allied with Prussia against Austria. Austria lost, and Venetia was surrendered. Rome remained.
The Pope would not surrender the city.
In 1870, France withdrew its troops to fight Prussia. Italian forces entered Rome. The last barrier fell. Italy was finally united. Italian unification was not inevitable. It succeeded because nationalism created a shared identity, inspired mass participation, united writers, politicians, soldiers, and citizens.
We made the borders, but don't forget, the cost was blood.
We made Italy. Now we must make Italians.
It was not the republic I dreamed of, but it was a home.
It's not just a geographic expression anymore.
Italy was not united by kings alone, or by war alone. It was united by an idea that people with a shared past deserved a shared future. That idea, nationalism, would go on to shape the modern world. As Italy unified, Germany was watching closely. Together, these new nations reshaped Europe's balance of power, their influence reaching far beyond the 19th century. For centuries, power in Europe had belonged to old empires, Austria, France, and the fading remains of the Holy Roman Empire. But nationalism was changing the rules. Italy had shown that shared identity could build a nation. Germany would take that lesson and apply it differently. Where Italy relied on compromise and popular movements, Germany would rely on calculation, industry, discipline, and war. If nationalism can create nations, what happens when it is directed from the top and enforced by the state? That question defines Germany.
Germany was not united by speeches, shared culture, or compromise. It was united by calculation, by war, and by a man who believed politics was about outcomes, not morality.
After the Congress of Vienna, Germany was not a nation. It was a patchwork of 39 independent states, loosely connected in the German Confederation. In 1862, Prussia's king turned to a man with a dangerous reputation.
My dear Bismarck, the German people are divided. Austria dominates the south and our neighbors watch us like wolves. How do we make Prussia the leader of a united Germany?
Your Majesty, we will not achieve unity through speeches or majority votes. That was the mistake of 1848.
Bismarck had a single goal: unite Germany under Prussian control without Austria. To do this, he relied on Realpolitik. Realpolitik means politics of reality. It rejects idealism and moral principles in favor of practical outcomes.
In Bismarck's view, power mattered more than principles. What mattered was not how a goal was achieved, but whether it was achieved at all. If the ends justified the means, then breaking a treaty, provoking an enemy, or ignoring moral objections was not corruption, it was necessity. And war, to Bismarck, was not a failure of politics. It was a tool of politics to be used deliberately, carefully, and without apology.
The great questions of the time will not be decided by speeches and votes, but by blood and iron.
Realpolitik unified Germany, but it also normalized war as policy. The question historians still debate is not whether it worked, but what it taught Europe to accept.
The first step toward unity was controlled expansion. Denmark attempted to absorb two German-speaking territories, Schleswig and Holstein.
Prime Minister, the Danish king is trying to integrate Schleswig and Holstein.
Perfect. We will ally with Austria for now.
Prussia and Austria defeated Denmark quickly.
We take control of the north. The German people must see that Prussia, not Austria, is their protector.
Denmark was defeated, but victory was only the surface result. Prussia emerged with greater influence over the northern German states, tightening its grip on the future of Germany. Austria and Prussia fought as allies, managing the aftermath together. Yet beneath that cooperation, tension deepened. Because this war was never truly about Denmark. It was about positioning, for power, for influence, and for the conflict that was coming.
Next, Bismarck turned on Austria itself. Before fighting, he isolated Austria diplomatically. France and Russia remained neutral. Austria stood alone.
You have provoked Austria into war. We are fighting our own cousins.
It is a necessary operation, sire. We must sever Germany from Austrian influence.
The war lasted just 7 weeks.
The war is over. Austria is defeated.
Austria was pushed toward empire building in Eastern Europe instead. Austria emerged from the conflict stripped of its leadership role in the German world. Prussia stepped forward to fill the vacuum. In its place, the North German Confederation formed, firmly under Prussian control, bringing much of northern Germany together for the first time. Germany was now Prussian-led, but it was still incomplete. The southern German states remained independent, watching, waiting, and soon to be drawn into the final stage of unification. The southern German states distrusted Prussia. They were Catholic, independent, and feared being swallowed by a powerful Protestant military state. Bismarck did not try to reassure them. He made reassurance unnecessary. By creating a common enemy, he forced a choice. When France threatened Germany, the South did not join Prussia out of loyalty, but out of necessity. That was Realpolitik.
To complete unification, Bismarck needed one final ingredient: a common enemy.
To unite the South, we need France.
You intend to start a war with Napoleon III?
I intend to make France start one with us.
Bismarck took a diplomatic report known as the Ems telegram, and he edited it, making it appear that the French ambassador had been insulted.
France declared war out of pride. The words were real. The order was real. The meaning was engineered. This mattered because the southern German states, which were largely Catholic, were traditionally wary of Protestant Prussia. But by framing France as the aggressor, Bismarck used a common enemy to overcome this religious divide. Nationalism mattered not because Germans all agreed, but because fear, pride, and identity finally aligned behind Prussia. The German Empire was proclaimed not in Berlin, but in France's Palace of Versailles, a calculated humiliation.
I present to you, Your Majesty, the Kaiser of a united Germany.
Wilhelm I was crowned Kaiser, the German term for emperor, symbolizing the birth of the Second Reich.
It is done. 3 wars, Realpolitik, and the map of Europe is rewritten.
Germany's unification destabilized the balance of power and made future war not just possible, but likely. Germany was not united by chance. It was engineered. 3 wars, 1 strategy, and a belief that power, not principle, rules history.
Power is not given. It is engineered. And once unleashed, it rarely stays controlled.